Monster Hunter Wilds arrived in early 2025 with immense anticipation, touted as the spiritual successor to Monster Hunter World and the next major leap for Capcom's iconic franchise. As the first game in the series built exclusively for current generation hardware, expectations were sky high. The initial reception was overwhelmingly positive, with the game shattering sales records and quickly becoming the fastest-selling entry in the series' history, moving over 10 million copies in its first month. Steam player numbers soared, peaking at more than 1 million concurrent players at launch, cementing Wilds as one of the biggest releases of the year. Yet, this triumphant launch quickly turned into a rocky and contentious year for both the developers and the community. While the core gameplay loop delivered the thrilling monster hunting action fans have come to love, technical issues, controversial design choices, and a lack of endgame depth began to erode the game's initial goodwill. What followed was a tumultuous year of updates, fixes, and community debates as Capcom worked to steady the ship and chart a course for the future. At its heart, Monster Hunter Wilds is a deeply satisfying hunting experience. The moment-to-moment combat remains the series' greatest strength. Weapons feel powerful and weighty, each offering a distinct playstyle, and the monsters themselves are beautifully designed, with fluid animations and a sense of scale that makes every hunt feel epic. Capcom introduced sweeping weapon balance changes and new moves in post-launch patches, showing an impressive responsiveness to player feedback. These updates reinvigorated combat and gave longtime hunters new techniques to master. The monster roster itself was a strong mix of returning favorites and fresh additions, with Lagiakara's return bringing back underwater combat for the first time in over a decade. Each fight has its own rhythm and strategy, and the thrill of taking down a powerful beast remains unmatched. Unfortunately, this strong core was overshadowed by pervasive technical problems. The game launched with severe performance issues, particularly on PC, where even powerful hardware struggled to maintain stable frame rates. Players encountered frequent stuttering, crashes, and inconsistent optimization. The situation was worsened by Capcom lowering the announced system requirements just before launch, leading many to believe they could run the game smoothly when, in reality, they could not. Even months later, despite patches aimed at improving shader compilation and texture streaming, performance remained a major obstacle. Console versions fared slightly better, but they were still plagued by texture pop-in and visual glitches. These problems created frustration and, for many, made the game simply unplayable. A significant portion of the player base abandoned the game within weeks, reflected in plummeting Steam ratings and dwindling concurrent player numbers. Another major issue emerged with the game's endgame content. At launch, Monster Hunter Wilds streamlined many systems to make the early experience smoother and more accessible. Features like guaranteed gem drops, fast travel, improved UI, and better onboarding made it easier for newcomers to jump in and enjoy the hunt. While these changes were initially praised, they inadvertently weakened the long-term progression loop. The challenge curve flattened too quickly, and players found themselves reaching the best gear without the sense of accomplishment that defined earlier titles. Once the main story was completed, there was little reason to keep playing. Unlike previous games where endgame hunts were grueling and rewarding, Wilds offered a repetitive grind against a small pool of monsters with few variations. Capcom attempted to address this through a series of title updates throughout the year. The first major update added Mizutsune, a beloved classic monster, alongside minor fixes. Player engagement remained high initially, with hundreds of thousands logging in to experience the new content. However, as the novelty wore off and the performance issues persisted, numbers began to drop. The second update introduced Lagiacrus and Sirios, along with the return of underwater battles. This was a nostalgic highlight for longtime fans, but it wasn't enough to stem the decline. By the time the third update arrived, featuring a massive collaboration with Final Fantasy XIV, complete with crossover armor sets, chocobo companions, and a raid-style fight against Omega Planetus, the community was split. While many praised the creativity and ambition of these events, others criticized Capcom for focusing on cosmetic content, while core problems went unresolved. The year's biggest addition came with the fourth update in December, which introduced the first Elder Dragon Gogmazios, a sign that the game was finally preparing to expand its roster in meaningful ways. Alongside this, more tempered monsters and seasonal events were added, giving hunters new challenges to tackle. These updates gradually enriched the game, but they also highlighted an ongoing issue with pacing. Content drops were too spaced out, leaving long stretches where there was little reason to log in. Players would return briefly for a new monster or event, complete the available quests in a few days, and then leave again. This cycle created a sense of inconsistency that hurt the game's long-term engagement. Monetization has also been a contentious topic. While all microtransactions in Wilds are purely cosmetic, their presence so early in the game's life frustrated many players. Character and Palico edit vouchers, for instance, were locked behind a paywall, a move widely seen as unnecessary and greedy. Paid cosmetic packs were released alongside updates, with some items feeling like they should have been rewards for in-game achievements rather than purchased content. Although these transactions don't affect gameplay, the timing was poor. With performance issues unresolved and the core game needing improvements, the introduction of paid cosmetics gave the impression that Capcom's priorities were misplaced. This has led to growing concern about the potential for future pay-to-win elements, though for now, the system remains purely cosmetic. Despite all of these challenges, there are many signs of hope for the future. The foundation of Monster Hunter Wilds is solid, and Capcom has a proven track record of turning troubled launches into celebrated successes. Much like Monster Hunter World, which only reached its peak after the release of its Iceborne expansion, Wilds appears to be following a similar trajectory. The upcoming 2026 expansion is expected to introduce master rank hunts, new biomes, and a significant roster of new monsters, along with major improvements to difficulty and endgame variety. If executed well, this expansion could redefine Wilds and finally deliver the fully realized vision that fans expected at launch. The community remains divided as 2025 comes to a close. Dedicated players who have stuck with the game through its ups and downs praise its combat, monster design, and gradual content growth. Casual players, however, have largely moved on, disillusioned by the ongoing technical issues and lack of consistent updates. The game's Steam population has shrunk dramatically from its launch peak, though cosmetic sales indicate that a core audience remains engaged. Looking back at the year, Monster Hunter Wilds can be best described as a game with incredible potential, hampered by its own missteps. Its hunts are thrilling, its monsters are memorable, and its combat systems are some of the best in the genre. Yet these strengths are constantly undermined by poor optimization, a shallow endgame, and a monetization strategy that frustrates players. It is a game caught between greatness and mediocrity, waiting for the right moment to tip the scales. As it stands now, Monster Hunter Wilds is a good game with the potential to become a great one. For those with powerful hardware and the patience to endure its flaws, it offers some of the most exciting monster hunting experiences available today. For others, it may be better to wait and see what the upcoming expansion brings. If Capcom can fix the technical issues, deepen the endgame, and maintain a healthy cadence of updates, Wilds could ultimately be remembered as one of the franchise's finest entries.